Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I hope you have your tissue, because I do. Good evening. My name is Yadira Menendez. I want to take this time to thank Casa de Amparo for giving me the opportunity to share some of my experience, strength, and hope, and to everyone else for coming tonight. I was born in El Salvador, but when I was 3 years old, my family escaped the war and moved to California as refugees seeking an American dream. At a young age, I witnessed violence in my own home. Since my father was an alcoholic, he would often brutally beat my mother and oldest brother. I grew up thinking the abuse was normal. I didn't end there. By the age of 12, I was molested 3 different times by 3 different men that I trusted. I also watched my father almost successfully commit suicide. Shortly after that, he packed up his things, left, and never looked back. I saw my mother stress about providing for 3 children, but somehow she managed. While she worked 2 jobs, we were left at home, most of the time fending for ourselves. At the early age of 13, I experimented with drugs. I started with alcohol and marijuana, but shortly after, I began smoking crystal meth. I felt accepted and cool, and there was no one around to stop me from my self-destruction. I ended up pregnant at the age of 15 and had my first son, Junior. It was difficult going to school, working, and providing for my son. As my addiction got the best of me, my son was pawned off between my family and his father's family, until his father made the decision to keep him for good. At the age of 20, I had my second son, Daniel, and 2 years after him, my third, Eric. But this time, I changed my drug of choice from meth to heroin. My pregnancies were not enough to stop me from using. Daniel was born without any withdrawal symptoms, but my poor little Eric suffered for 2 weeks. They kept him for observation, but they never had to medicate him, and he got to come home. I took my boys for granted. By the time Daniel and Eric were 3 and 1, my addiction was full-blown to heroin. I couldn't break free. I neglected my children and myself. Then one night, God intervened in the form of 2 police officers. They came to my door after a noise complaint and proceeded to ask my husband questions. Because he was on parole, the officers had the right to search the house. They found syringes and a knife and determined that my husband was under the influence. They arrested him and left. I thought I was in the clear, but at 1 a.m., the officers came back to remove my 2 boys. That was the worst day of my life. I cried days after that. My whole life was turned upside down. I was given the chance to fight for my 2 boys and get them back in 6 months, but I remained selfish. I truly believed that I could continue to use and get them back. I lied and cheated all my urine tests until I received unsupervised visits. It almost worked. My deception finally caught up to me, and my higher power stepped in once again, this time in the form of my own mother. She exposed my lies to the social worker. I lost everything. My addiction controlled my life, and as much as I loved my kids and wanted them back, I couldn't do it. In December 2008, I was arrested for the first time for possession of a controlled substance. I bailed out but returned to jail for a failure to appear in court. This time, no amount of money could get me out. Immigration picked me up, and I spent the next 3.5 months in a federal prison. It was then that I discovered I was pregnant with my 4th child, my first girl, Jacqueline. I told myself that I would do anything to stay clean and to be a good mother to her. It didn't go as planned. The urge to use continued and took over. In July 2009, I gave birth to Jacqueline. She was born drug positive. The adoptive family that took my 2 boys took Jacqueline as well. By April 2010, the adoption was final. I was completely heartbroken. I felt like a piece of my heart was torn out and thrown in the trash. I couldn't see any purpose to my life and didn't put up a fight. After the 3rd relapse, I just gave up and numbed myself with anything I could. In 2012, I ended up pregnant with for the 5th time. I had no intention of keeping my baby. It wouldn't be the first time I would terminate a pregnancy for my own selfish need to continue to use. As I got further with my pregnancy, God intervened the third time in the form of my husband. Since my decision weighed heavy on my heart to terminate, my husband, Ramon, expressed that he wanted me to have the baby. So with some hesitation, I agreed. When we found out we were having a girl, we were so happy. On August 2012, Annabelle was born. It was a bittersweet moment because I knew they were going to take her from me. But this time I was determined to do something different. I was going to change. Due to my using, Annabelle was admitted to an infant intensive care unit. They gave her medication for the withdrawal symptoms. I felt horrible and guilty for my poor choice since while pregnant. I hated seeing her in pain. She was a total of 35 days in the hospital, and I spent every moment by her side. The day before she was discharged, my social worker told me that they had already found a foster home. I was there when the foster mother came to pick her up. I got her ready and handed her to this stranger. It broke my heart, but this time I had hope, and I didn't give up. My husband and I both enrolled in drug treatment programs. However, the social service agency did not want us to have visitation services due to the drug history and the loss of her 3 children. We fought with the agency for months until one day in court, the judge recommended the agency to grant us visitation. Ramon and I cried. We were one step closer to bringing Annabelle home. The social worker informed us that we had more visitation time with Annabelle, but would go through a visitation center. We weren't too happy since our last experience with the center wasn't too pleasant, but we accepted. All we could think about was Annabelle. We began going through Casa de Amparo, found a visitation program. From the moment I walked in, I knew it was going to be different. Staff looked past our flaws and took time to know us and our struggles. I never felt judged or unwelcomed. Sometimes I just needed someone to listen or to tell me that I was doing a good job. And I got that from Casa de Amparo. It made all the difference in helping us reunite with Annabelle. However, my social worker wanted more from me. He wanted me to detox off the methadone. I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to handle the withdrawal symptoms, but I agreed. I was willing to do anything and everything to get Annabelle back. So before I moved into a residential home, I began going down 3 milligrams at a time. As the doses went down, the sicker I felt. With the first 2 weeks, I experienced bone and body aches, hot, cold sweats, anxiety, vomiting, and sleep deprivation. But I still managed to continue program and attend visits with Annabelle. Casa de Amparo was always asked how I was feeling and encouraged me to keep up the great work. When I had successfully detoxed the methadone, I was so proud of myself. This was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do and a huge accomplishment for me. 1 month later, I was able to have unsupervised visits. All my hard work was finally paying off. On April 2013, Annabelle was placed with me for my 60-day trial. And in July, my case with social services closed. Ramon and I cried in court when the judge said those words. We couldn't believe it. It was unreal. We knew then that miracles do happen. I look back at my life and wonder how things could have been different. Would I have turned to drugs if I didn't experience abuse or neglect when I was a child? Who knows? All I know is everything happens for a reason, and I truly believe that this is how my life should be. I wouldn't be the woman, mother, daughter, sister, or friend you see here today if I didn't go through all those hardships. Though life is hard, I've learned the importance of being there for my kids, physically and emotionally. I've even reunited with my oldest son, Junior. He is now part of both mine and Annabelle's lives. I continuously count my blessings and thank those who supported me along my journey. I thank my mother for doing the best she could with what she was given. She made sacrifices for us to have food, clothes, and a roof over our head, and I love her for that. And I want to thank my sister, Tanya Paniagua, who is here in the room tonight, for being the best sister I could have asked for. You were there during some of my hardest times and never judged me for my decisions. I love you with all my heart and couldn't have done it without you. And I want to thank Casa de Amparo for the deepest part of my heart for helping me stay clean and getting my baby girl back. Today, I have an opportunity to make a difference. I would like to do something for the community like Casa de Amparo does, such as help another suffering mother, addict, or child. Though I recently obtained my GED and pursuing a career in cosmetology, my greatest success is ending the cycle of abuse in my own family. I appreciate you all for support in helping other victims of abuse, creating brighter futures for their own families and generations to come.